Hello everyone and welcome to a scrapbook layout process video, and yes, I'm doing even more photos from Vancouver. I thought I was going in to look at my photos to pick some for the front page and some from the last page, and as I was scrolling through my photos I remembered that I had not scrapbooked any of the amazing house that we stayed in. Chelsea actually found this place and organised our stay here, and she did a lot of organising for what we did during the day as well, because she had been to Vancouver a couple of times, so she was like our travel guide for when we were there, and she did an amazing job not only with our daily activities but also with the house that she chose. And this place had views for miles. So this is when we sort of first arrived. There were so many balconies and areas to hang out in, and we absolutely loved it. And I really did want to put these photos into my album because where we stayed was just magnificent. But I needed some help with how to position all my photos. I knew I wanted to make this one a large 5x7. I knew I wanted to include 2 photos of the house, and I did have another little read of the Wander and Remember Scrapbooker's Guide to Capturing Your Travels, which we have just put out. I think it's important sometimes to take photos of the actual places you're staying in, and we pretty much knew we were going to love it here. But when I was rereading this, I also took from this guide, when I was choosing my photos for my layout, to include photos that gave perspective. Now, I'm not sure if you can tell from this, but this was the driveway that Erin, who was our chief driver, had to navigate every day. Sometimes in the dark, it was steep. So I wanted to include that perspective, but I also wanted to include another photo here of the house that showed the amazing areas that we could walk out onto. And you can see Julie here having a little rest in one of the deck chairs. I love this one of Jama taking photos and Katie just taking in the view. And I also love this one here of Erin. She was sitting here doing some work, and look at the view when you sat in the lounge area. It was absolutely beautiful. And then I've got a photo of us all outside the front door. We all became official Stampin' Up! Demonstrators while we were there, because this was in May 2024. Some of us had taken our catalogues, some were viewing things on their phones, and we had a little group shot outside the front door as well. And I've got my journaling done here actually on photo paper, because I was printing this 3x3 and I had some room to put that in here as well. So you can see I've already positioned my photos, because not only did I need some help with choosing my photos, which is why I had a little bit of a reread of this book, and it's something that I sort of do anyway when I'm choosing photos. I want to pick the ones that are the most memorable to me. And I was flipping through all the pages in the sketchbooks that we have here for 12x12s, because I wanted to pick something that had a good landscape style feature photo, but I also wanted to do a portrait photo as well, and then fit the others in. So I've narrowed down all my choices here to have 7 photos on the layout. And when I was looking through volume 2, I saw this 7x5 photo here. I really wanted to feature this photo here of our amazing view over to Vancouver City and all the waterways and everything. I knew I wanted to print that as a 7x5. And then I knew that I wanted a 6x4 photo here. And these ones here are used as a jumping off point to start laying out my photos. So if I put these around the way that the sketch is determined, I could definitely follow this perfectly. I'm going to move this up here, but I did print this one as a 4x4, so I have changed things up a little bit. I could layer this one here and bring in my journaling and bring them in like this. I can even do this sort of thing with the layout for the right side. But when I was looking at this, I actually felt like for the photos that I've got, that it would work better the other way around. So I have manipulated the sketch a little bit when it comes to this. You can see I've got white borders on everything. And one thing that you want to be mindful of when you're cropping your photos and zooming in and making edits to them are horizon lines. So when I was doing this, I knew that I didn't want the horizon lines to be different with these 2 photos here. So I have cropped this one intentionally to match this one on the right side. I didn't have much wiggle room on that one, but I did want to put this photo in And I knew I wanted this one, which is on the right side here, but I wanted it on the left. But being a portrait photo, you can see this sort of bookends the edge of this page here. So when I went to use it on the left side, I've put this 4x6 photo over onto this side here. And then when I was laying out my photos and following this sort of row of 3x3s, but I've changed the sizes of them, it just felt like these two photos next to the house are fighting with each other with where the eye is going to land. So I moved things around a little bit more. I'm going to line the bottom edge of these two up and the top edge of these two up, and then nestle these in. I'm going to move these over just a little bit and just play around with them. It's like doing a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle. So while this sort of doesn't really look like this one, it does follow it along, even though I've reversed it. I've got my 4x6. I've got a panel of photos coming down on the right side rather than the left side. And then I've got these 3 photos coming along the bottom here. So this one down the bottom here is doing double duty, but by separating these 2 photos, it means that the attention is going to go to each photo individually, but the main focus is on us here, I think. So this is where I've landed on, I think, for my photo layout, even though it is a little bit different from the sketch. And the other thing that I liked about this sketch was all the layers here of the pattern paper. So what I've done is pulled out Take to the Sky, because I think just by holding all these papers here, they all work quite well with the colours in my photos. So I have quite a lot of strips and pieces left over here. So what I usually do is just pull out a couple of little pieces, put them with my photos. I instantly knew that I wanted to use this sort of mosaic type brick piece. I think it's a really good neutral, this grey. I've used it quite a bit in this album, so it's going to sort of flow along and be quite consistent. I really like how that looks. And with the other pieces, there were some layered up elements, so I thought I would bring in this green here. These are not cut to size yet. These are just me playing around with the pieces. And there was another little element that came out from the edges of the photos. So this piece is actually from Weekend Adventures. And I did a scrapbooking guide for this one not that long ago. And I have just a few little pieces of this one left over, and I think it'll work quite well in with my photos with the trees and everything that are around. So I am going to get busy and do some cutting. I'm not quite going to follow the cutting guide, I don't think. I think I'm going to play around with this a little bit, and a lot of that is determined by the scrap pieces that I have left over. I'm going to try and make this layout without cutting into any new sheets. So I've got all my pieces cut here. The first piece I wanted to cut was a large mat for this photo, and I wanted to extend it down. So that's just a little bit different from the sketch, but I really like how that works. So then I wanted to cut a piece that would work on this side and carry across these 2 photos here. So it's somewhat following the sketch, but I'm putting my own little twist onto it. And I am going to matte my photos. I think I'm going to double matte them. So I'm just trying to work out what colour I'm going to use while I'm putting everything together. But I think what I'm going to do is move this one down a little bit more. And I'm thinking putting my title on this piece here. I'm going to do some die cut letters, I think. And these are the little pieces that I was cutting down for little tab pieces. So one is going to go here. And then I've got another strip. Now this one's quite strong, this Mossy Meadow, but I do quite love the pattern, and I love this sort of matte area down in this section. So I'm just trying to work out if I use that with this down the bottom here, but some of it's going to be covered up, or if I turn it round and have that more at the top. I think I quite like that better. Even though this is fairly busy, this paper, because I'm going to be double matting my photos, I think it's going to work quite well. So I really like this sort of arrangement. And you can see I have inked all the edges here. I've just inked them with Espresso. And now I need to build up this side to get some matching pieces here. So this is bringing that dark Mossy Meadow colour across, and I want to bring this piece across as well. And I'm going to hang that over just a little bit because I want some of those darker trees showing. In the cutting guide, it's a little bit narrower, but I have just made that a little bit wider so I get the darker trees. And I really like how this looks. but I've got a lot of white space on the bottom here. Now in the sketch, there is a base page, another layer, and then the white on top of that. I don't think I'm going to do that with this one because I had some pieces of this grey paper left over, and I think I'm just going to anchor the bottom edge with those. So let me bring both of these in. So I'm really liking how that's looking. It's a bit of a softer base rather than using the stronger colour. I did think about bringing in some of this matte paper at the bottom, but that gives it a whole different look. I'll just put my photos here on top of it. I think that just makes it too heavy and it sort of draws the eye down to that piece there. So I'm going to take that away and just to use this grey piece here. So I really love how this is looking. So now I'm going to decide on my photo mats. Now I did ink all my edges here with early espresso. So I thought it would sort of make sense, and I've got some more scraps here, to mat my photos in early espresso. But I'm not sure I love that colour. It does look great, but when I put it over onto these areas here, what it's bringing out is this actual handrail here. And I have a feeling if I put it on this one here, it sort of works, but your eye is drawn to the roof line of the house. While you do this one here, it's bringing out all the browns. And we're all standing here in front of a brown door. And that's my final decision of why I'm not going to use this one. I really don't like the brown with that. So then I thought I would go to one of my favourite neutrals, which is Secret Sea. So I could use this side, which has more of a sort of green tone. I'm just going to put it under this photo first because this is the one that has the strong wood colour of the door. I think I like the Secret Sea with that. Got some other offcut pieces here. I'm going to put this photo of Erin on here and my journaling. I like how it looks with that one. I'm just going to put my house photo here so I can see a little bit of that. I think Secret Sea is going to be the winner. I think it works with all of the photos on this side. I'm just going to see what it looks like with this photo here. I do love that. I think black would be too strong. I do love the softness of Secret Sea. It's such a versatile colour. I know it's quite strong and dark, but it does work really well as a neutral. So I've got all my elements adhered down now, and I really love the layering that these corners give you, and that is totally from the sketch. Even though I may not have cut these exactly to the same size as the sketch, it works really well with this layout. So it was such a good jumping off point for me to start this. Now in the sketch, it did have a couple of tags, so I've brought these two in, and I'm putting them sort of in the same area as what this right page is here. So I have adhered to this fairly much to plan, except for the strip at the bottom here. And they are from the Take to the Sky pack. I'm a little bit sad that this one has disappeared from the store. So it's no longer available, but I know a lot of you have purchased this for your travels. Even though some of the papers have old-fashioned type planes here, it still works so well with the reverse side. And this has a whole lot of tags and cut apart pieces on here. I know already that when I get to doing my Alaska cruise photos that I'm going to bring this element in, but I have just cut these apart, and these are the two tags I'm going to use for that element purely as decorative. This is my little journal spot here, and I have matted that on to Secret Sea. I really love how the photos are looking on this, but I wanted to bring in a little bit more of this green paper, and I've got this banner cut out of here, and I'm wondering, no one's going to know that that's all covered up there. I'm wondering if I want to mat that onto a little bit of that pattern there. And then I could bring in some more green here. Or let's just have a little play with these other pieces that are left over. I have some strips here, and I can make some more strips with these leftover pieces, and they might be really good finishing spots on top of this piece of paper here. I think that's going to work really well, and no one's going to know that they're not full 12-inch pieces. So I might just trim these down a little, have a little play with this and see if I like the look of it. It's going to be a bit tricky to get this all nice and straight because it's trimmed so much. I'm just going to trim it from the back side here. So I'm going to use my trimmer from this edge and trim this off so it is exactly at that 3/4 inch mark. And then I'm going to cut strips as I go down here, as many as I can get. I might not even have to cut into those larger ones. I'm going to see if I can get it all done with these 2 strips. And these were just all the leftover pieces that I had from the scrapbook guide that I created, and I'll leave a link to that video below because I really love what I created with those pages, or with this paper I should say. So I think that's quite a good use of these little banner pieces that I've got left over. I don't know if I'm going to ink the edges of this. It could be a little bit tricky. There's not much to hold on to, so I can save those for something else, and then I can cut these pieces so that I can trim them along the bottom here. I think I really like how this looks. It just brings a little bit more of that green in. These are only 2 very tiny little pieces. Colours are sort of replicated in this tag here, but they're sort of looking like they don't belong because there's just those 2 little pieces. But if I ink up the edges of this, let me see how I go. I'm just going to move my mat along because I don't want to put any ink splatters. I only have to ink up the top edge. So I've got my early espresso ink, and I'm just holding this with the tips of my fingers here. So I think inking the edges of this works really good. I'm not going to make you watch me do all of that. And it's good that the pattern for this, the trees are sort of all staggered, so I don't have to worry about cutting the strips so that everything lines up perfectly. I think that's going to finish off that edge really well. Now I did go ahead and cut some letters out. This is an old close to my heart die. It's the block alphabet, and I really love these letters, and I'm thinking that perfect might work really well here. And then I'm going to do some stamping for the perfect place. I watched Katie Taylor's video just the other day for our creative design team collab. She did the same sort of thing with her title, and I thought it would be great just to bring in a little alphabet, and I'm going to put in the perfect place. So I think I'm going to stamp the at the top here and possibly place down the edge because I haven't quite got enough room to do it underneath here. I could bump my title up and put it underneath here, but that sort of leaves a bit of an awkward gap. I sort of like how this is looking on here, but what I'm going to do is put this on a block and do it on a piece of scrap paper first. And this is just a little trial run to see if I like this alphabet that I've chosen, because I do want to see that this works before I actually stamp on my background piece here. I'm only lightly tapping my ink. I'm not trying to get perfect placement on this just yet. I can do that when I'm stamping onto my page. And this is going to give me an idea of whether or not I like this on my page. Just going to trim this out a little bit. Obviously, when I go to stamp it, I'm not going to push down quite so hard when I do the L because that has smooshed out a little bit. If I'm worried about stamping directly onto my page, I could do it on a piece of white and then have that there. But I think it's going to look quite good with the perfect place. I love how these strips just finish off the top of this one down at the bottom here. And no one's going to know that they don't run all the way across. Now, I pulled out a couple of stamp sets, so I'm thinking about stamping the trees to go just along this section here. Oh, I have some die cuts in here. So I'm going to make this really fast and possibly just use those. So I think what I might do is just cut these and bring them in to my layout. Let me see. I'll just tuck this under. I think that's going to make a nice little touch just going along here. And then I also pulled out notes and totes, which I know sounds a little bit strange to put with this layout of the house and all the views and everything, but I really like this relax and enjoy. So I think that would look good down in this area here. I think this is going to finish this page off just nicely. I know that I've got quite a few different greens in here with Old Olive and Mossy Meadow, but I think it all just ties in really well. Just got to pick that up carefully and put that down. I don't know if I'll bother putting it in between these little sections here. I think it'll make it look a little bit too busy. But I do think that I need to do both the outside and the inside edges. So I think it just needs to be finished off on each side here. So I'll just bring that in and I'll show you. I did use this not that long ago. But you can see here when it cuts out, the top section of the tree is cut out, but this part is not cut out at all. So you can put it on a big border strip if you wanted to, or you can just have it on a smaller border strip. It's up to you wherever you position it on the paper. And the same thing works for this grass section here, and also for the mountains, and also for the water, and also for the florals there. So it's quite a clever set. Put these that I didn't use back in there, and that'll be another happy find later on when I go to use them. And for my stamping, I think I'm going to use Secret C because I've got my title in Secret C here. So I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do this and not make a mess. So I'm just going to get out a Post-it note. I'm going to have the relax. Where am I going to do this? Relax and enjoy. So for the first part, I'm just going to ink up relax. So I'm just going to keep my masking tape here. I'm going to wrap it around so it stays in place. I'm going to ink this up. Now, I haven't actually stamped with this before, and I forgot to season it. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a practice, but that is working just fine. Now, you can see here, if you don't take this off, you're going to get a smudge from the word here. So I'm just going to take my masking tape off. And I think what I'm going to do is nestle it here so that it goes up a little bit into this area at the top here and sort of nestles around that corner. And then I do need to clean my stamp off because I'm going to mask this off again so that I get the and enjoy. This time I'm just going to give this a little bit of a rub just to make sure. So now I can take that same Post-it note and put it around here so I get the and enjoy. And being able to wrap that around as well means that it's not going to fall off, because sometimes the Post-it notes don't actually adhere to the stamp itself. I'm going to do another little test, make sure that that's stamping nicely. That's if I hold the stamp set properly. There we go. That's going to look beautiful, I think. So now I'm going to take away my Post-it note. I'm just going to nestle this one here. So you can see I could put a Post-it note on my photo here. Oh dear. All right, I messed up a little bit then because I was thinking about protecting my photo because it was a little bit sticky. So now I'm going to see if I can line this up. If I can't line this up, I can stamp it onto a piece of paper. All right, so let's see how I go. Now that also might have happened because it's a different height between the base of the white paper here and this matted photo. So that has not worked at all. So that's what not to do. So I'm going to stamp this onto a piece of white cardstock. So I'll just have to do my masking all over again and just bring this down towards me. I haven't got a little raise here that makes the stamp rock a little bit. And you can see it does stamp beautifully. So I'm just going to clean that section off. And I thought I would leave that in the video because I always say, oh, if it doesn't stamp properly, you can always stamp it onto a piece of paper. But I thought I would show you that, yes, mistakes happen and they're all fixable. So now I'm going to line this up so that I just get the relax and not the little bit of the and. There we go. I do love how the Secret C looks. I've got that a little bit over like this. So that looks pretty good. I just need to clean this off, trim it out, and put it over my mistake here. And nobody will know, except everybody that has watched this video, nobody will know that that even happened. So when there are mistakes on a scrapbook layout or a project that you're working on, there's usually a fix to them. And sometimes it just involves adhering something over the top of some stamping or an embellishment that you really don't like. So you can see I've covered up my stamping faux pas and I've inked the edges of this with the brown ink. So I've had two stamping issues with this. I'm going to try and lift this off because I have decided, and that was my other one there, I've decided that this needs to be inked up as well. So I am just going around the edges of this and then I will re-adhere it. I think if you do something like this and you have inked some of the edges here. It's good to ink the edges of these pieces. It sort of makes it look like, and I'll put this down a little bit crooked, so I'm just going to fix that. It just makes it look like it belongs. That's a little bit better. And I can put this on the edge here, and I think that just makes all the difference. So I thought of that after I had put it down. I didn't know I was going to mess this bit up, so I was going to lift that up and put the little bit of inking on there. But this is my finished double page spread here. I know last time I worked on my Vancouver photos and put them up on YouTube, I thought that all I needed to do was the front and the back page. I'm so glad I scrolled through all of my photos to make sure I hadn't missed anything, because I just think these photos really need to be in the album. I used some of the new olive twine here. I absolutely love that. And I have a little bit of confession. It's not the first time I've used this one. I've had this, I think, since the new annual catalogue came out way back in May, and I actually haven't used it to make the tote bag. So that is on my radar to make. I really think I need to get that out and play with these fabulous dies. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I really appreciate the lovely comments that you leave and clicking that like button. As always, happy crafting. I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.